My name is Dan Young, and welcome to the Millionaire Code podcast. I'm a self-made guy that has made multi-million-dollar businesses from scratch. There's no way I could have done it without the help of mentors who provided me with the wisdom and guidance to help me create the formula for success. Each week on my podcast, I'm going to interview a hugely successful business person that will provide you their secrets to success. And that way can act as your mentor too. I can't wait to share their stories and takeaways with you. Welcome to Dan's Millionaire Code. Hi, welcome to Dan's Millionaire Code. I am Dan Young, and every single week on the podcast, I love to bring some super entrepreneur, Jedi, millionaire, billionaire, world-changing human being. And this week's guest is Drew Manning. Fit to Fat to Fit. You probably see him all over social media. I know every single one of my friends all over Instagram and Facebook, they all know this man. And he has done some incredible stuff. And remember, this podcast, guys, is not sponsored. You don't have to buy anything in it or anything like that. It's just really cool people that have done amazingly well financially, physically, spiritually, sharing what's worked for them. If it helps you, please share it with a loved one. Please share it with a friend, someone who would benefit. That's how you can help us keep this going, by getting the word out. So I appreciate you guys watching this podcast. So let me just tell you a little about Drew. He's Drew Manning, also known as the Keto Guy. He's insanely successful, physically, spiritually, mentally, financially. I mean, he's a really well-balanced dude, and we've been spending a lot of time lately. He really inspired me to lose a lot of weight just watching his videos. They're very motivational, and it made me take some action. I'll talk about that in a minute. But let's also talk about what he's done. He was featured on Dr. Oz, Good Morning America, and all over social media. And social media, he's crazy awesome. New York Times best-selling author from the Fit to Fat to Fit book. That's right. There. A hit TV show. Yeah. Right? Fit to Fat to Fit, airing on A&E in Lifetime?
In Lifetime, yeah. So season 1 was on A&E, season 2 was on Lifetime.
Wow.
Kind of weird how they switched, networks, but it happens sometimes in the TV
That's pretty
industry.
Cool. And a secret new book coming out very soon.
February 12th, super excited about, called Complete Keto. So it's taken everything I've learned from Fit to Fat to Fit, everything I've learned from keto, and kind of combined the two for a complete transformational book. So not just a physical transformation where all I talk about is keto and how to do the keto diet, but also on the mental and emotional side, because that's what people struggle with the most, is not just the diet plan, the workout, the recipes, the food. It's more up here. And so I give people tools and hacks to combine the physical, mental, and emotional into one book called Complete Keto.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks.
You're the first fitness super Jedi that we've had on the show. Everyone's been like just money, right? Primarily. And so I'm going to introduce you to all of these guys, because we all
can't wait.
Guys and girls, we all need to work out more and lose some weight. But an interesting story why I was just following you ever and trying to get you onto the show is this. I started watching your stuff, and I went in. I was on two diabetes type 2 medications.
Yeah.
And then my doctor said, dude, Dan, you're not grossly obese, but if you did drop 15, 20 pounds, you probably wouldn't be a lot better shape. And when we check your levels, I would bet you'd see some significant change. So I'm like, man, this dude could go from lean to really pudgy, kind of looking like me I was, and then down to ripped again without going insane, staying healthy, figuring out how to do that. I can do that too. Mm-hmm. So I'm studying keto, watching your videos, looking all over the internet, and I figured it out. And over the last couple months, I've dropped some good weight, not crazy weight or anything, but I went in. This is crazy. This is 2 days ago. I went into my doctor, and they checked my blood levels. And they had this sensor that checks your blood glucose all day, all night.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, oh, well, you don't need to take those medications anymore.
Wow.
That's huge, man, because my mother has to use insulin and all the stuff like that. And I don't know if that's typical of everyone to see that kind of thing. But for me, I didn't know that just some diet changes could change that blood sugar. And I don't think just the weight loss, but actually not, gorging on carbs. And
A lot of stuff like that is overlooked in the fitness industry because we think the end all be all is to be skinny and ripped, like that's what the goal is. But really, it's health first. And I know a lot of people with six-pack abs and people who are skinny that are super unhealthy on the inside. Wow. So I think our perception of health and fitness is I need to look like this Instagram model to be healthy, but there's so much more to health and fitness than just having the perfect body, right? Mm-hmm. So if people could focus less on the scale and focus more on their health first and let weight loss be a byproduct of living a healthy lifestyle over time, I think people will be more fulfilled and find they'll be happier with who they are. Like they don't need to have the perfect body. They don't need to put that pressure on them. But I feel healthy. I'm off my medication. Those non-scale victories, what we call it, is really what transformation's about. So at least that's what I preach.
Well, this is like really getting my brain going. So you see like these Instagram people and they look like they're on the cover of Men's Health and all this kind of stuff. Like, and they could be unhealthy. Explain to that because people think those people, oh, that dude is like a deity. Like, man, I would be like that guy, with that girl who looks like that. What do you mean? Like, if they look like that, that doesn't mean they're healthy?
No, not at all. And that's one thing I'm trying to get people to change their perception of is you don't need to be that person. You don't need to try and compete with that person because there's a lot of unhealthy ways to get skinny. There's a lot of unhealthy ways to get 5% body fat. And so I see it all the time. And just because you look that way doesn't mean that you're fulfilled with who you are on the inside. There's more to this life than just having the perfect body. And so that's one thing that I preach. And the problem is that our society, our culture puts that pressure on people to like, hey, you need to look like this. And look at our magazines, how to lose 10 pounds in 10 days. And it's sexy, right? It's addictive for people. People here want the quickest way to lose the most amount of weight in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of effort. They want the magic pill, right? We all want the magic pill.
That's what I was searching for all those years.
Doesn't exist yet. But if you could just change your perception and focus on the process rather than the results, people would be so much better off. Our society will be so much better off. Because the problem is people put so much focus on the results, thinking if they don't reach that result of looking a certain way or having a certain scale weight, then they're a failure. It's not worth it. It's too hard. Versus like, hey, if I just develop these healthy habits, then my version of healthy might look different than this person's version of healthy, and that's okay. It doesn't need to be a one-size-fits-all. We need to be 5% body fat. And so it's an uphill battle, right? But I feel like that's what makes me different in this industry. That's my niche, if you will, in this industry, which is very saturated with a lot of six-pack abs and meal plans to look a certain way. If I could get people in, the hook is the physical transformation. If I could get people in there and then teach them the mental, emotional, spiritual side, then I feel like that's where complete transformation happens. That's my goal.
So interesting thing. So we have a lot of, guys and girls in the company that do like bodybuilding shows and stuff. Some of them are eating these prep meals 6 times a day with a little rice, a little this, a little broccoli. And they're just constantly, we got to eat now. And they're like, I got to leave the meeting and eat. Or they just shove it in their face. Why keto over portion control and all these? Why did you choose that path? And why do you think it's maybe better in some ways than?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me personally, I'm a big believer that different things work for different people. So I'm not bashing any other lifestyle, right, that people live, whether it's a bodybuilding or vegan or vegetarian, whatever works for you. Find what works for you. For me, the thing that sold me on keto wasn't the weight loss, wasn't the fat loss. It was nutrition for my brain. So the mental clarity that I experienced from going keto was like night and day compared to before. And my eyes were open to, just how your brain can function more optimally just by changing your diet. So I went from eating 6 small meals a day, Tupperware containers, chicken, broccoli, rice, like
everyone's eating
every 3 hours,
right?
And that works. To look a certain way, it definitely works. It can work for some people. But for me, to go from eating that kind of lifestyle, 6 meals a day, to once or twice a day, and my brain is more optimal, my digestion is better, and my performance at the gym is just as good, I was like, why not? I'm not a slave to food anymore. I don't have to bring the food with me and meal prep all day long. I could fast all day long, maintain my muscle mass, right? But my brain is so sharp, and my digestion is better because I'm not having to digest food, 12 hours a day. I'm only having to digest food once, and that energy that goes to digesting food can be used towards other things like cell regeneration, repairing the body, anti-aging, anti-cancer benefits even, and longevity, right? So for me, I feel like this is the better plan for me long term, just because my brain feels so much better on keto. But to each their own, right? Different things work for different people. So that's why I became a fan of it, though.
I had this weird kind of mental epitome about keto because it's been now almost a couple months, right?
Yeah.
So, and the strange thing is this: it's not the big thing was like it lowers that ravenous hunger pain.
Yes.
That's the difference, though, because I did
the hangry feeling.
I did the 6 meal a day
Yeah.
prepackaged thing, and I actually had lost like 25 pounds before it, and I gained
Yeah.
it back though. Because the problem is, as I was looking at that, and literally after I did that 6 meal a day washing it thing, then I freaked out. I went to like Costco, bought a cheesecake, and ate half of it in the parking lot. But the weird thing is, after about, I think it was about 10 days, I wasn't having these like dreams of food.
Yeah.
In fact, you'd eat, and it was pretty good food. Right? I'm eating pretty good,
Yeah.
right? On keto, and I'm not dreaming about meal next while I'm eating the meal. And so more importantly maybe than its metabolic effects or whatever's happening in the body is in my brain.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, you know what? I'm not looking forward to, I'm not dreaming about, gosh, when this is done, I'm going to be skinny and then I can go back to normal.
Yeah.
This is like, I can eat like this forever. I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels like forever because I'm not suffering.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like a diet.
No, it doesn't. It feels
Right.
like I'm just eating and I'm not thinking about it massively.
Yeah.
And
I think that's what people love about keto is they come for the weight loss or the fat loss but then the food tastes good. They feel really good on it once they become adapted. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a transitionary phase for some people, but once they become adapted, it becomes in my opinion, much more of a sustainable lifestyle for people because they're not a slave to food, right? They're not having to eat 6-7 times a day and have a 3-hour alarm on their phone to eat, and you're not hangry when you go without food. Some people can't last 5 hours without food. It's ridiculous. Our society has kind of become this food on demand type of society where we push a button, I need food right away, otherwise I'm going to die. Whereas like our ancestors, didn't always have access to food. They didn't always have like a grocery store or Uber Eats to deliver food to them when they wanted it. They had to go hunt for it and find it. And so ketosis was a natural state for our species, ancestors to be in because we didn't always have access to food. So without ketosis, we would have died off, as a species if we had to go a day without food. But we have this natural metabolic healthy state to be in called ketosis. And it gives us an opportunity to go without food and still function optimally and be sharp mentally if we need to. But our generation, our parents' generation, kind of came from this 3 square meals a day kind of society.
I've looked at the optimized figure that people have in keto versus just big bodybuilding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is, I was talking to the doctor about that, right? Cardiologist. Doctor's like, she's like, keto is actually very popular, and if done right, good. As long as you're not eating, bowls of butter, all day or something, drinking cups and cups of it.
Yeah.
She's like, because it's calories, right, and moderation and those kind of things. But if you look at the physique, what's interesting of that, she said, like, she said to me, Dan, you keep lifting weights, pumping iron, doing all this stuff, and you gain a lot of weight, but you got a lot kind of like fat mixed in there with it, and you're really strong, you power lift and all this. Yeah. She's like, that's really hard on your heart. She's like, being from as an Asian person, you're not meant genetically to be that large.
Yeah.
And she's like, and that can cause cardiovascular strain.
Yeah.
And I saw it in my cholesterol, my blood pressure, my heart rhythms when I took my EKGs and all this. And so going from, let's say, that 230 down to that 180 something, like everything started to normalize.
Yeah.
And what's weird is strength-wise, I'm probably like pretty close to where I was when I was like a lot heavier and a lot thicker,
It's interesting. Yeah, that's what I think that's what's interesting is like changing our perception of what we need to be to fit into society. I think the older you get, hopefully the wiser you get too, and you realize, hey, I want to live a long time. I want to be around to my kids and grandkids and like live a very long, fulfilling life. You start to worry about your health at some point where you're like, hey, I want to look good, but I also want to live a long time too. So maybe if I make these changes now, I can live not just live a long time quantity wise, but also quality of life too. Right? You don't want to live to 100, but be at 70, be on your deathbed, or not on your deathbed, but like immobile and not be able to play around. You want to be 100 years old, but still running around 80, 90, 100 years old and have that high quality of life. And I think keto can help out with that because what it does is it mimics fasting. Fasting is something that's overlooked in our society, right? It's practiced by every major religion, if you think about it. So there's so many benefits to fasting. And the keto diet just mimics what fasting does, right? Fasting is another natural place to be in for our species. Just not our generation has been used to it, but keto can mimic that, give you the benefits of fasting without having to starve yourself all the time, right? Because it makes you feel full and satiated, having these high fat foods, and like I said, the food tastes really good. And so for me, it's great for anti-aging, right, and anti-inflammation, and for if you look at the science, that's what like your cardiologist was saying. There's a lot of scientific research to back it up nowadays versus like, hey, this is just a good diet to lose weight and then gain all the weight back. So change your perception. You can change your story. You can change your life.
This is cool. So tell me your story though. Where did you come from, and how did you get into this whole keto thing, and how did you get into the fit to fat to fit and Dr. Oz? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because one thing, I know a lot of people that are physically fit, but then a lot of times they're financially not doing that well. They're like struggling, barely, and every penny is going to paying for their gym routine and all those kind of things. You're an interesting balance because again, we talked about physical, mental, psychological, spiritual, and then financially, you're not a person who brags or anything, but you do pretty decent. You do well.
Yeah, I feel very blessed and fortunate. Thank you for pointing that out. For me, it took a lot of personal work, personal development to get to this point where I feel like I have balance with all these pillars: the physical, the mental, the financial, the spiritual. I feel like I have balance. I think a lot of people in this world tend to focus on one or the other while sacrificing the other pillars, right? So they'll be physically fit, right? But they won't be financially fit, or they'll still kind of hate who they are on the inside, very insecure, and they feel like if they have this type of body, then people will like them and they'll like themselves more because they're more accepted by society. Or people will gravitate towards, hey, I want to be financially fit, be successful, because then people will respect me and people will like me, but then they'll sacrifice their health by not taking care of their health to gain all this wealth, and it causes this imbalance. And so for me, it took a lot of mistakes and failures, if you will, to get to that point. I'll try and make this story short of how I got here. Yeah. But basically what happened was, so I grew up in a family of 11 brothers and sisters. We all played sports. I was in shape my entire life. I never struggled with my weight. Well, in 2009, I became a trainer, and there was an immediate disconnect between my clients and me because I was someone who had never been overweight, trying to help people, lose weight and get in shape. And these people have been overweight most of their lives. And so I'm like, why don't you just do what I tell you to do? Here's the meal plans, here's the workouts, you just do it. And they would say, Drew, I'm trying, but I had soda this weekend, or I cheated, and I didn't go to the gym because I was sore, I was tired. And I'm like, just do it anyways. Like, it's not that hard. And so they would tell me, Drew, you don't understand, because for you it's easy. It's always been easy.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh.
You've always been ripped, bro.
Yeah, I know. They're like, you don't understand what it's like. And so I'm like, maybe there's something I need to learn. So this idea of getting fat on purpose somehow entered my head. Like, it just was a light bulb moment. I'm like, hey, what if you do this? No one's ever done it before, on purpose at least, or documented it, right? And so I decided to get fat on purpose as a personal trainer. So I didn't know what I was doing. I started a website. I learned how to do that. I used Squarespace, to start a website. I started a YouTube channel. And my wife at the time, I was like, hey, can you just record me on our phone and just, record videos? And so I started documenting this weight gain journey, this fit to fat journey. And it was crazy because for 6 months I couldn't exercise. 6 months I had to eat, whatever I wanted.
What are you eating?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Hot Pockets, macaroni and cheese, a lot of white bread and white pasta and juices and sodas and granola bars.
Like,
and
you have to
chips,
force
cookies,
it down
crackers.
your head? Like,
no, the food tasted good. The food tasted really good.
Captain Crunch or whatever.
The food tastes good. It makes you feel good, temporarily. And so at first it was fun. I'll admit it was really fun to eat like donuts and pizza, and I don't have to go to the gym. I had this sense of freedom. Like, I could go to the grocery store, skip all the healthy stuff, and just go down the cereal aisle. And
what was your favorite, bad for you but good tasting food?
Good tasting food. Cinnamon Toast Crunch was amazing. Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
That's good, huh?
It's so good. Why is it so good? I don't know. It's got crack cocaine in it.
It makes your brain just.
Yeah, I would literally have that twice a day sometimes. And then Mountain Dew is my drink of choice, because I remember my clients telling me soda was the hardest thing for them to give up, whether it was diet soda or full sugar soda. So I was like, okay, I'm going to drink soda every day. So I did. And after about that sense of freedom that I was talking about slowly started to go away as I realized I'm trapped. Walking up the stairs, I could barely breathe. After a meal, I had to lay down because of all the visceral fat pushing on my lungs. It made it harder to breathe. I started snoring about a month or two in, and that affected my sleep. which, you know, if you're sleep deprived and you're not sleeping very well, then your mood is different, your hormones are off, your energy levels are lower. And so I was like, okay, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I remember a couple times I had to bend over and clip my toenails, and I never had to hold my breath. So I would like take a big breath and like clip as fast as I could, you know, and like come back up for air. Okay, then go back down again, you know. It was crazy. And
how much did you gain?
76 pounds total.
And how long? How long?
6 months.
That's a lot of fat.
That's a lot of
6
fat.
months.
And so here's the thing. I did this. I was documenting it. I didn't have a marketing strategy. I didn't have like connections to the media, but the media got wind of it and it went viral. It exploded. So I went on TV shows like Jay Leno and Dr. Oz and Good Morning America. Like, who's this crazy trainer that's getting fat on purpose? And so it was insane. And then you know, the book deal happened, and this whole time, here's the thing: the biggest lesson I learned wasn't so much on the physical side. I knew physically I was going to get fat, but on the mental and emotional side, I struggled so much because I didn't know it was going to affect me mentally and emotionally. I was so self-conscious. I wanted to go up to strangers and tell them, hey, I'm not really overweight. Here's my before picture. Go to this website. I'm not really like this. This is just an experiment. And because I freaked out. My identity was based on what my body had looked like my entire life. Like, I grew up in shape, and that was part of my identity.
Did people treat you different than when you're Mr. Ripped, you know, like when you got heavy? I mean, did you notice like same people or different? I mean, just people, strangers?
Yeah, that's a good question. No one was rude to me or said anything mean to me. But I felt like I was being judged by people. I felt like I was looked at differently. Like, so I remember one time I was in the grocery store and there was these 3 women behind me, and I was checking out with all this junk food, and I felt the stares from them of like looking at my belly, looking at this shopping cart full of like, you know, soda and chips and cookies and cereal. And I wanted to be like, hey ladies, I normally eat spinach and kale and green smoothies, but today I'm eating this. I wanted to tell them, hey, I'm eating, this is an experiment. This isn't like really me. But I didn't say anything to them. And I remember at that moment, you know, I was like, you know what? This is something my clients have to go through on a daily basis, where they feel judged because of the way they look and the food that they're eating. And I finally started to see things from a different perspective. And it gave me empathy, right? Empathy is a very powerful tool to connect with other people. Mm-hmm. And yes, what I did was crazy and risky, but at the end of the day, it opened my eyes to how much of transformation is mental and emotional, and it gave me empathy to better relate to my clients, and they could better relate to me because they saw how humbled I was through this experience. And at the end of the day, it made me more relatable as a fitness influencer or a trainer or health coach, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because people are like, hey, this guy understands me. He's not just another guy yelling at me to lose weight and get fit. He understands where I've been. And so it just helped me with the relatability factor is what I call it. And I think people gravitated more towards me because of that. And that's what separated me from every other trainer in the industry. It was like, hey, I was willing to do this. And yeah, so to make a long story short, I lost the weight. Yep. Right, I got back to fit. Luckily, luckily I didn't get stuck. But I learned so many valuable lessons along the way. The book became a New York Times bestseller. It turned into a TV show where we coached other trainers through this process. Like, hey, now it's your turn, these other trainers, to do what I did.
Whoa, did you have a bunch do it? Like,
yeah. So the season 1 there was 10. Season 2 there were 6 people.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of people. So and here's the thing: every single trainer went through the same thing. They were humbled. They had more empathy. They had more respect for their clients. It was way harder than I thought it would be, and their clients respected them more. They had such a stronger bond with their trainer because of what they went through. And so it was really powerful to see these trainers go through this. And I think this approach, this empathetic approach, can make a difference in the fitness industry. Why? Because there's this quote that I love saying, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And as a client that has a trainer that might have all the knowledge in the world, that knows all the science of how to lose weight, and they know the right diet and how to exercise, that's cool. But unless that person knows that you care about them, they're not going to be willing to listen to you. But once they know that you truly care and come from a place of empathy and respect, then they're going to listen to all the knowledge that you have. But if you just try and vomit all the knowledge on them and say, oh, do keto or do this type of exercise is going to get you ripped, that doesn't resonate with people all the time. It's not relatable to every single person, right?
Mm-hmm,
so that's what Fit Fat Fit did for me. That's what we're trying to do with this Fit Fat Fit movement by bringing other people on this type of journey.
That's cool, man.
So yeah, but here's the thing. All the success was going on, but I was struggling financially at this time. People don't know it, you know, and I've never really talked about this publicly, but I felt like I had this persona to uphold, like, oh, you're a New York Times bestselling author, you have a TV show, you should be rich. But I wasn't, man. I was struggling, to make six figures, and I wouldn't say I was poor, but like I wasn't at the status people like assumed I was.
Oh.
And so here's the thing: is I had all these things going. I was looking for people to pay me a salary, but during this time, there was a lot of personal issues going on. Like I was going through hard times with my wife. We eventually got divorced. I had some personal things that I struggled with the religion I grew up in. I was surrounded around guilt and shame, and it eventually broke me as a man, as a human. It broke me, and I still had my business and wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be. But once I went through this personal development journey, if you will, where I started seeing a life coach who changed my perception of how I saw myself. I developed a better relationship with who I was. I started to develop self-love for myself despite the mistakes I'd made in the past. Then I started to realize, okay, I started to become more aware of who I was, what my purpose was on this earth. And once I went through the years and years of, life coach and reading certain books like by Brene Brown that changed my perception of guilt and shame, and I started to love myself, coming from a place of self-love, I was more authentically me, and I owned my story. That's when things started to change for me from a financial perspective, because I was more in line with who the real Drew was. And once I knew that, my message was more authentic and people resonated with it more, and people respect me more, even though it was really hard for me to go down that road of being vulnerable. And that's why I got this tattoo, the vulnerability is strength.
Wow.
That really, once I embraced this, everything changed for me. I mean, physically I was kind of already in shape, right? But now I had more intention. I wasn't as obsessed, like I need to be 5% body fat, otherwise I'm a failure. I came from a place of self-love when I would exercise versus a place of self-hate. And I would punish myself through exercise, right? And then financially, things started to align where I met the right people that helped me with my message, that believed in what I was saying. And that's where things started to change for me. So now I feel like I'm in a place where financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all those pillars are balanced and I'm more fulfilled in life.
That's cool.
Even if something goes awry, and let's say I lose all my money, I still feel like I would be in a good place mentally, emotionally, like I would find a way to make it happen because I feel like for me, I have my why, and I feel like if you have your why, you will figure out the how. Does that make sense? So, anyways, hopefully it answers your question.
This is awesome. So, for me, that physical pillar has always been the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Making money has always been, well, it's not always been. It's really hard. When I first got started,
so easy.
It was really hard. But then I realized I ignored my health completely, and I was just grind to make money and those things. And the interesting thing is this. I started on this kind of physical quest, on following your stuff and different things over the years to try to improve that area. And the strange thing is I posted a meme about energy.
Yeah.
And how energy is everything and important. In business, it's very important, to have that enthusiasm, to have that fuel, to have that in your voice, projecting. And the better you feel physically, the easier it is to make that happen. Weird thing being, though, just in the last couple months, meeting with the same people, by physically being healthier, people can see that. They can sense that. Obviously, they can see how you look, but they can see it in your personality.
Yeah.
And people say, man, something's changed, man. Like, I thought you had a lot of energy before, and that's why we're doing deals, but what are you taking, man? And so then I said, oh, yeah, man, I'm following this, my keto buddy, and I feel really good. And what's funny is first thing they do when they see you, they're like, man, you got leaned out and stuff, but more importantly, your energy's higher.
Yeah.
Then they put their hand on their belly, and they start thinking about it, and they're like, hey, what's that guy's website? That's the funny thing. So the weird thing is the physical and the spiritual and emotional super complement the financial.
Yeah. Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so weird how everything is so connected, and it's almost like I call it internally. What do we call it? The pyramid of power. Your physical, your financial, right? Your spiritual.
Yeah.
If you're aligned there, man, then things just become easy, and it's almost not desperation anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like people start, gosh, you're so lucky, man. You're so physically lucky. You're so financially lucky. You're so spiritually lucky. Your relationships are lucky.
Yeah.
Maybe that creates luck when you're balanced. Maybe you're just luckier because you're there.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing.
That's beautiful.
Strange though how that's gotten to that.
Yeah.
I want to hear though something interesting along your whole journey.
Yeah.
Now that you've achieved all these things physically, financially, spiritually, what's been the biggest like roadblock that like, oh geez, where like you totally were just not knowing what to do? Did you have a point where it's like a major obstacle? And it could be in your physical journey, your mental, your financial.
Yeah.
Like, was there a big?
Yeah, there's a few different ones, but I'll talk about two specifically that stand out. One was, came from this upbringing, or perception of my upbringing was that I was never good enough, right? And so when you feel like you're never good enough, you look at yourself as a failure, and you tend to do failure-like things where you'll self-sabotage. And people do this all the time, where they're like, you know what? See, I told you, like you weren't meant for that. You failed, and you're a failure, right? Separating those two things of you failed versus you're a failure were really hard for me as a kid to understand the difference, right? You do a bad thing, you're a bad person. That's kind of what Brene Brown talks about in her research, is the difference between those two things. And as a kid, it's hard to separate those, but now I can see the difference in those two things. But overcoming that was really, really hard for me, because here I was, I could pretend to be confident on the outside. People that knew me back in the day when I was married, they're like, yeah, Drew seems like a confident person, but on the inside, I hated who I was. And that caused me to do failure-like things, whether it's failure in my marriage or failure with business decisions. Because I'm like, you know what? See, like it was weird. I was gravitating towards these failures, because I saw myself as a failure. So once I learned how to develop an authentic relationship with myself and come from a place of self-love, and this didn't happen overnight, but it took years of like working on it. I didn't look for things to sabotage myself with. I didn't have that negative self-talk in the back of my mind saying, see, you don't deserve this. You're not meant to be here. You're meant to be down here, right? Everyone has those self-limiting beliefs, but I feel like for me now I can overcome those, because I don't have to become my thoughts. I can become the observer of my thoughts. And when I have that negative self-talk, I can step back and say, hey, this isn't the real me, right? I know where this road is going to lead, and I'm not going down that path anymore. So now I'm more thoughtful about my responses to those negative thoughts, and I just don't believe them anymore. And so, like I said, this took a long time. So that was the first thing, was overcoming
How did you learn this, though? Did you use a personal breakthrough, or did a life coach, or read it somewhere?
It's a combination of a lot of things. So my life coach, she used this method from this book called Loving What Is. And, she helped me see. Here's the thing. We focus so much on the things we can't control. Like she talks about God's business, other people's business, and your business. Anytime you're living in God's business, which is like, why me? Why do I have this affliction? Why do I have this tendency in life to do this? Like, why did you afflict me with these, sins, or these tendency to do these sins? You can't control that. You can't control Mother Nature. Like, why did this bad thing happen, right? You're miserable in living in God's business, and then living in other people's business, wondering like, well, what does this person think about me? Do they like me? These things that are outside of your control are where a lot of people live, and that's why they're miserable. When you focus on your business, right, and you stay in the things you can control, then you're so much more happy in life, because you're like, hey, I can control this. I can't control these things, so let it go. Don't take it personally, and just let those things, take care of themselves. And you can't control it, so why worry about it anyways? That kind of helped me see my journey. Like, okay, these are issues that I have to work on. And she kind of helped me see that. And once I learned that, I was like, okay, I can learn to love myself despite these mistakes I made. I don't need to define myself by my past anymore. And then Daring Greatly by Brene Brown was a really good book that first started me to see the difference between guilt and shame, right? Shame is where so guilt is where like you do something bad, you feel guilty, right? Shame is where you're like, I am a bad person. I have failed and I'm a failure. That's what shame is. Once you get rid of that shame, you are so free. And the more you talk about the things that bring you shame, the less power shame has over you. So once I started opening up to people, I had a hard time opening up to family and friends and even a life coach. Once I started opening up to people and talking about those things that brought me shame, the less power shame had over me. And then once the less power shame had over me, I was like, you know what? I can be authentically me. It's not scary anymore. I'm not afraid to tell people my story, or to tell people about these things that are so, might seem embarrassing or, like how you don't talk about that because guys don't talk about their feelings. I'm over that.
Do you teach some of these techniques in some of your material?
I do, but it's
because this is not like keto. This is like
it's not like keto at all, but it can help out with the physical transformation, right? Because you're learning to love yourself where you're at now, while you're working on a better version of yourself. And so that's what brings more fulfillment with physical transformation. You're evolving and transforming emotionally, spiritually at the same time as you're transforming physically. Because once you start to love yourself, you're like, you know what? I want myself to feel good. I want myself physically to feel good too. So I'm going to start developing these healthy habits because I want to feel healthy in this life. I want to be fulfilled, right? I don't want to have to live my life for other people and worry about people's perception of me. I want to be able to live my life authentically for me, and I choose to be healthy because I love myself. And so, yes, a lot of these things are taught, like in my new book, Complete Keto, how to wrap all this into a whole lifestyle change. And so
on the new book, more about the internal.
Yeah, more about the internal. You'll get the keto science and the keto 101 and how to do keto and the physical stuff. That's all in there. But
so that's what drove you to write the new one, to add the internal components.
The other thing that helped was meditation, right? I never learned how to meditate because growing up here in Western culture, meditation's weird, woo-woo. But once I learned how to meditate, it was a different way to tap into being more present with myself and just with those around me. So meditation was a powerful tool as well. And so I implement that in my strategies. And
you teach how to, some of the principles of how to do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's cool.
Positive affirmations is another powerful one. Gratitude list on the daily is really important as well. So these types of things can help people with a total transformation.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty awesome book. So that's coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, February 12th, 2019. Really excited about it. Like I said, I put my heart and soul into it, and so my hope is that it resonates with people.
Here's a big one.
Okay.
What we have a lot of young people and older people and all people over all spectrums, but a lot of people are getting started in an entrepreneurial endeavor.
Okay.
We met actually at what's that, ClickFunnels,
Yes.
rah with Russell Brunson in Idaho, and he's got that killer software that helps you market and everything, right?
Yeah.
How do people get started? Like, let's say they're into fitness, or let's say they're into whatever it may be. How would you recommend they get started? We told you told us your story a little bit, but maybe a head start for these people getting started.
100%. There's two phrases that have stuck with me within the world of entrepreneurship, and this is where people really need to find the self-discovery, the self-awareness. One is your stand is your brand. What do you stand for in this world?
You can take notes on this one.
Yeah. Your stand is your brand. So what makes you different than everybody else in this industry, right? A lot of people would say, oh, don't go into the fitness industry. Everyone else, there's so many meal plans about keto or whatever. What separates you from everyone else is your stand. What do you stand for? Like, what is your message? And that's the other thing. Your mess is your message. And so for me, that's the other one.
That's gold.
Like, what is your trials and tribulations you've been through that have made you who you are? So talk about the messy stuff. For me, I had to open up about my divorce. And I had to open up about living an authentic life. I had to talk about guilt and shame. And being totally honest with you, I had to open up and talk about pornography addiction and having an affair. And, anyone that's listening, I talk about this on my podcast, by the way. So it's not like this is like, new territory for me. But I had to talk about these things, and my mess became my message. So yes, I talk about keto and physical transformation, but you see how these things that I've learned from these mistakes, this messy world I came from, has become my message now.
That's cool.
And so for someone that they need to discover who they are, right? Rather than like, how can I make money? If I can be this person over here, then I can make money that way, but that's not authentically me. You might be able to be successful in that, but you'll find that's probably not fulfilling. So if you want to be fulfilled with your entrepreneurial endeavors, find out who you are first. That self-discovery, that self-awareness, and let your stand become your brand, and take your mess from your past and turn that into your message with whatever industry you're going into.
That's huge,
that's
man.
My advice for people.
That's killer, man. So we haven't had too much time, but you've given so much knowledge here.
Yeah.
Where can people find you and all your knowledge and wisdom and all the different things you offer to help people and mentor people? And
it's super simple. It's all fit to fat to fit. So fit number 2, fat number 2, fit.com. It kind of leads you in the right direction where my book is, my new book coming out, my old book, all my keto programs, all my podcast episodes. Everything is branded fit to fat to fit. Social media, website, podcast, book. First book, second book is Complete Keto though.
Your Instagram, super active, Facebook, YouTube, you're like a maniac over there. Always got really cool content.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
So let me just recap a couple of things. Your stand is your brand.
Yeah.
What makes you different? That's a big one.
Yep.
And your miss is your message, so don't be afraid to talk about your screw-ups and all the things that you've done bad and where you've come.
Yeah. But make sure you don't just come from a place and vomit all over the place and be like, hey, this is where I came from. Really dig deep, and put the time and effort into understanding it, right? And learning from it versus like, okay, so I just start talking about these things? No, for me, it took me years to get to a place where I could open up and talk about my mess. From the affair to pornography addiction to the failure of the divorce, all those things. It wasn't like the next day, like, all right, Drew said, talk about this. You got to come from a place of owning your story and wrestling with vulnerability. It should be really, really hard for you. But dig deep and find out what that is so that you are separate. You are separated from everyone else. And that's where people resonate with you when you're authentic, right? People can tell when you're inauthentic. And yeah, some people might be fooled by that at first. And well, you could still be successful as far as making money, but you'll be more fulfilled if you come from a place of, self-awareness first and you understand these.
And so you talk about these experiences and stories of being, of how you're authentic. What is the best way for people to get that message to the audience they're trying to build a relationship with?
Yeah, that's where social media is so beautiful. That's a great place to connect with people, whether it's doing Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives, YouTube videos. The more content you put out there, the more real, people will discover who you are, right? So like, don't just put the best pictures of you out there, right? Where you're smiling, you're happy. Talk about the hard things, right? And people will be like, you know what? This person's human now. I can relate to them. Wow. It's that relatability factor that I talked about when I did Fit. Even though I didn't understand what I was doing, the relatability factor is essential in the world of entrepreneurship because people aren't just buying your products, they're buying you. So that's why I'm saying you have to really know who you are when you're out there on social media doing Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives. And then that's where your vibe attracts your tribe. Have you heard that one too?
Yep.
All these like funny, your vibe attracts your tribe, and the people. Not everyone's gonna love you. You have to be okay with that too.
You get the haters sometimes.
Yeah, you'll get the haters, and that's okay. That's not your demographic.
Well, you've definitely brought yourself to the top of your game. If you Google keto, like your stuff's it's like all over. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Thanks, man. Appreciate
it.
Dan.
So fittofat2fit.com. That's where they can find you.
Yeah, super easy. Okay. You'll find me.
I appreciate you giving us a glimpse into your life and sharing wisdom for everybody. Most of the people watching this podcast have listened to this for hearing the financial experience of very powerful people who've built incredible companies and are entrepreneurs. But this is the first one about health.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our viewers out there would benefit. And if they're doing well now, if they're doing okay now, getting started, by honing in their health, I think it'll compound their financial results. And if they follow some of these principles you're talking about, they'll keep their mind and their spiritual game going.
Yeah.
And then they'll have that balance.
100%. A healthier you is a happier you. That's what I tell people. You're the best version of you when you take care of your physical health, but mental health, emotional health as well. You're the best version of yourself when you take care of those other pillars.
I got about 20 pounds to go, man. I need you to just, you
got this.
Keep sharing the knowledge with me here and just be like, damn.
Yeah, you'll find it's more of a mental game. It's not just like, hey, eat less, work out, and then it should all go away. It's more of a mental game, right?
I'm getting lots of positive reinforcement. I'm seeing people I haven't seen, let's say, in 6 months, 3 months, and they're like, dude, what are you doing? They're like, dude, you're looking ripped. And it's kind of it almost makes me feel better than closing a big deal or doing a new startup or whatever.
Yeah.
It's very invigorating to hear those kind of compliments because I really haven't had those kind of compliments, so it's kind of weird. It's a weird stimuli. So I think it's positively reinforcing it, and I think about that, and it's encouraging me to do it more. And more importantly, the energy level. I thought I had a lot of energy, and it's climbing at this trickle.
Yeah.
And it's fueling me to get up an hour earlier.
Wow.
I'm usually an early riser, 6 a.m. person, and now I'm 5 a.m. person.
That's awesome, man.
And I'm not waking up here feeling like I need to drink 15 cups of coffee or whatever just to go and do jumping jacks, I feel like when I wake up, I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
And then if you add in the exercise and all that kind of stuff, it even brings it up more.
Love that, man.
So,
It's
man,
good to hear that.
Thank you, man.
Thanks,
You're
Dan.
awesome.
Appreciate it.
So, guys and gals, Dan's Millionaire Code. I'm Dan Young. This is Drew Manning. I thank him for coming on the show and sharing this wisdom with you. If you found it beneficial, if it helps your life, please share it with those that you love and care about. We're everywhere. If you go to Dan's Millionaire Code, obviously you can find all the links. Our podcast is everywhere, YouTube, everywhere, and on Instagram. Also, one thing that would really help now, our following on iTunes is getting pretty large on the podcast. So if you like it, rate it a 5-star, comment on how maybe it's helped influence your life or giving you some ideas. I would be super grateful for that. Thank you for joining today. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. I got some a wonderful Jedi that will share even more wisdom with you. So take care and have an awesome week.
See you guys.